Hi, so today we're going to talk about monopolies, right? And as a business person, I think it's helpful if you have a monopoly on something, but the problem is that the word monopoly in itself usually has like bad connotations depending on who you hear use the word. So when people talk about capitalism and people like Rockefeller and these big corporations, they talk about how they have a monopoly and they're destroying everything and so on and so forth. But they never really think that there is such a thing as a good monopoly, and there's even a chance that you already have a monopoly somewhere, in your business or in your market that you don't even know about. So let's take a company like Google, right? Let's take Google search in particular. When you want to search for something, it, there's a high chance that you're actually really grateful that Google searches around, right? There's even a chance that most of your friends, don't use Bing or Yahoo or other things, but they use Google. And like nobody really complains about Google being a monopoly. I mean, some people do, but not a lot of people do, because the value is so like evident, right? The When you're looking for a place to eat or some information, you're actually really grateful that Google has a monopoly in search, and a monopoly in the sense of like such high value content that you can look through, and you don't really mind when it comes to that. But the thing is that how do you apply something like this to your business? How do you get a monopoly that is a good monopoly, right? And I have this theory. I call it the Karen Doctor theory, but it can apply to missionaries and all kinds of people. And when you think, I mean, when most of us think of doctors, right? This is what we think about, like someone who treats us, helps us, and so on and so forth. Very few people use the term bad doctor unless they've had a bad experience. But if they haven't had a bad experience, they just simply call them a doctor or a caring doctor or whatever like other adjective they use. And think about it this way: if you were this doctor or this medical professional or this scientist, or I mean someone who comes up with a remedy or a solution or a cure for something like, let's say, AIDS or cancer. Let me use cancer as an example. Wouldn't and let's say you lived in a city or a town of 10,000 people, and 5,000 of them had cancer. Wouldn't you do everything in your power to make sure that all those 5,000 people would, you know, get healed or receive the cure? You would, right? You do everything in your power to make sure that it happens. But people don't think about business that way. They think about business in terms of, if one person is the one who is providing the most value, they don't look at that. They merely look at, oh well, if he's the one providing the most value or he's the one with the most customers, that means somebody else is not getting customers. But when you think about it, right, nobody thinks about medicinal cures and stuff in that context, because nobody's gonna say, why is that doctor healing everyone? What about other people? Won't he allow other people also to heal them? And it makes people even feel bad when they're successful. And it reminds me of this time where I went to go see this entrepreneur, and she's in a really small niche, and she sells products that are pretty high end, not too high end, but pretty high end. And I was asking her about how she should at least have 40% of her market and so on and so forth. And she said, well, if I take all of it, like what will others do? And I thought about it that way. Aren't you like in this to help people? Because if you are, like for example, I consult, I help people grow their business and so on. I don't mind having 90% of the market as my customers if the market are actually like the ideal customers for my products. I don't mind having 90 to 100% of my ideal customers. Why? Because I know that my job is to make sure that I help them more than anybody else in the world. That is what is a good monopoly. A good monopoly is when you have a product or a business, or you created something, and your goal is to use that thing to help as many people as possible. So what you do is that you do everything in your power to make sure that all of those people who fit your market get exactly what they need. And I don't think that's a bad thing. But it's really important to think about it that way. And I think one of the reasons why people don't, venture into owning, all of the market that they need and so on and so forth, many times it comes out of fear and what other people will think about them, right? And it reminds me of this. I recently gave an interview to a friend's podcast, The Powered Life, and I was talking about how when it comes to things like, let's say, self promotion and sales and so on, a lot of people shrink, back. They don't want to, self promote too much and stuff like that. But I think it's selfish. It's selfish not to. And the reason I'm saying that is that if you have something that's of value, that's going to help other people, then it would only be selfish to be shy. It would be selfish to keep that thing to yourself because you're not thinking about the other people's well-being. You're thinking about your well-being, and that's my fact. It's not really your well-being you're thinking about. You're thinking about what other people think about you, and that actually isn't very wise. But it's something to think about. That maybe you're not shy, maybe you just lack responsibility. And think about responsibility this way, right? If it's your responsibility, if you've been given, this cure to solve everyone's problem in the world, right? Wouldn't it be your responsibility to make sure that everybody got it? So a good monopoly is a monopoly that is all about responsibility. It's responsible for its customers, its clients, its patients. So that's something to think about. And for those who have problems with sales, I recommend reading Richard Holmes' The Ultimate Sales Machine. It will it will completely disabuse your mind of anything with regards to what sales is and what it is not, and how to actually make sales and so on. So I highly recommend it. And now the question is, how do you practice this, in your business? Develop the mindset of a caring healer. That is someone who has a product of value and has the goal of supplying every single person who needs that product or wants that product. The second thing to do is to think about yourself as having a responsibility to your market, a responsibility to serve, not just to try to make money, but when you have a responsibility to serve, you will try to serve as many people as need you as possible. And if you have any questions with regards to any of these things or want to know more about marketing, advertising, or the psychological fundamentals of business, you can reach out at jeff@growing.startup.com and subscribe to the page, comment, send me an email. I read and respond to all my emails, so reach out. Thanks for listening.